Steve Sherlock here for Franklin Matters, Franklin Public Radio, available anywhere, anytime on the internet in your browser, WFPR.FM, and in the local Franklin, Mass. FM radio dial. Yeah, you know, the thing with the knobs and there's all the buttons, 102.9 on the FM band. Here today virtually with another town council candidate for our biennial election coming up November 4. 2025, and you can vote on or before November 4. Jane Callaway-Tripp. Jane, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
We need to do this so that everybody understands and we can create as much of an informed voter before those ballots are checked off. And we've got so many choices, at least for the school committee and town council this year. We need to figure out who's doing this, what's doing that, how. So, yeah, that's where we're about to begin.
Sounds good to me. I think it's great to get as much information out to everybody because there's nothing better than an informed voter.
We agree on that point for sure. So we'll start at the beginning and kind of frame it in context. So, what's your Franklin story? I think based on our prior discussions, you were born and raised here, but we can clarify that and add to the details and tell how you're involved here. So people say, oh, that's Jane. Yes.
Yes, I was. I was born and raised in Franklin. I live in the house that I grew up in. I went through Kennedy, Oak Street, Horseman Middle, and then ultimately graduated Tri-County. I have raised my children here, and now I'm helping to raise my granddaughter.
Hmm.
So our home has now become generational.
Yes.
Um, I grew up with parents that were very involved in the town. My parents ran the soccer registration program for many years. And I remember at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, parents come into the house to sign up their kids because the deadline was there and it was the only chance they had. And my parents were not turning anybody away.
Hmm.
I remember my father coaching for several years, many boys in this town, and that was a time when coaches took turns going out early on the weekend mornings to line the soccer fields.
Yes.
And they volunteered their time to do that. It wasn't a taxpayer expense.
Mm.
And they would do that. My mom sat on street lighting. I remember her going out many nights during the week with people like, we need a street light. So she'd go there in the dark to see where they were talking about, advocated for that. And then ultimately she ran for town council and she sat on town council. I got involved around 2018 during a time when I flooded, and that brought me into the council chambers. I took a pause in 2019 because my mom passed away. And then
Okay.
I
Yeah.
got back involved in 21. I addressed certain issues like stormwater and reduced parking requirements and things like that. I did run for council in 21 and did not get elected. And then I chose to step back a little bit and just observe how the new council would lead. 23, my home flooded 3 times again because drains and culverts weren't maintained, along with 4 of my neighbors. So that brought me back to the council chambers. That's when I started to find out about the ethic violations with DPW, which drew my attention. And pretty much since then, I've been attending every council meeting and I continue to speak about what's going on and what's right and fighting for honest and transparent representation, not for just me, but for everyone. And that is my Franklin story.
Hmm. Yes, for sure. And I can attest you've been there because you've been sitting, and I can see most of the time when I'm not heads down taking my notes, but yeah, I can attest you're there. Absolutely. Yes. And presence like that is certainly appreciated. And even if you can't physically there, you're generally in on via Zoom, or if you're in on cable, there's no way to tell, but that's okay.
Right. If
There are
I'm
many.
not there, I'm usually zoomed in.
Yeah, there are many ways to participate, which is good. And I'm glad the studio enables that on behalf of the town because that's critical for sure.
Yes.
One of the other questions is around civil discourse, and I know this has been one of the hot buttons of yours as well, in terms of it's a key component of our democratic republic form of government. unfortunately, some of the political divide these days is just unfortunately creating more of a divide, and we need to get to that, civil conversation. So, how is you as an individual going to help to either avoid or, mitigate that divide that we see?
Well, for me, political affiliation, Republican, Democrat, unenrolled, it really doesn't matter unless it's a state or federal level. But as far as town elections, the only thing that should even matter is whether or not you are a Franklin resident. I have personally had many conversations, respectful and meaningful conversations with people who hold opposing views. And if you want to bridge the divide, we have to start respecting not only other people, but also their perspectives. Nothing can be resolved without an honest dialogue,
Hmm.
and mutual respect. It's important to remember that while I may feel very passionate about my viewpoint, the person I'm speaking to feels just as passionate about their viewpoint
Hmm.
and just as strong. So you treat people the way you want to be treated, and we can move beyond the division and focus on solutions that would serve the whole community. If we're just dealing with people based on their political party, when it comes to town issues, then are we truly representing the town? Because the town is made up of all.
Correct. Yeah. And bottom line, especially in Franklin, we're all neighbors, maybe some closer than others, but we're all neighbors. And thereby dealing with that respect point of view, we may still disagree at the end of the day, but at least we understand more about where we're coming from.
Right. And I have had lengthy conversations and ended them with, like, you know what? You're not changing my mind. I'm not changing yours. So, you know what? Let's agree to disagree and have a beautiful day. Because at the end of the day, we shouldn't be mad at someone just because they don't agree with us.
Hmm. Right. Well said. Thank you for that. So, in your experience, what pieces of the background or experience do you have that you think would be able to serve in this particular road on the council? Or another way to phrase it is, what do you plan to bring to the table that may help you separate yourselves from other competitors for this spot as well?
Well, I think what I bring to the table is a commitment for true transparency, fiscal responsible spending, and ensuring Franklin funds its needs before its wants. I've always advocated for respect for every resident, and I believe that nothing less than honest communication should happen. I've walked many different roads in my life, which has given me an understanding of where many people come from. I've listened carefully to all viewpoints and believe there is always a way to represent everyone fairly. I question everything because I don't assume just because someone puts it in front of me that it is correct.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter who that person is, everything should be questioned. My personal viewpoints do not overshadow the concerns of residents. A woman, a mother, a wife, a grandmother. I live on fixed incomes and I try to survive in today's economy while preserving the town. I've always called home and I always plan to. I think what sets me apart is my willingness to ask the hard questions, to stand up for what is right, and to stand alone if it's necessary. My focus is and will always be honest, transparent engagement with respect for the people of this town.
Hmm. Okay. Well said. Thank you. And on the council specifically, one of the key responsibilities of the council certainly is to hire and provide oversight for the town administrator and his or her team. For
Right.
example, while you can serve as an escalation point for the townsfolk, this does not include micromanaging a particular department or operation. Do you agree or disagree? And can you elaborate?
Okay, so this one, I kind of both agree and disagree, and I'm going to explain why.
Sure.
In a perfect world, micromanaging an individual department should not be necessary. Strong leadership and financial stability should allow departments to operate independently, with the council providing a high level of oversight. But given Franklin's current deficit, I believe it is essential to take a deeper dive into the department spendings, how money is used, how it is tracked, and why certain expenditures are made. This level of scrutiny is necessary if we want to bring the budget back to balance. I also believe that a council must carefully review contracts, not only to ensure fairness to the employees, but also guarantee fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers. Too often I hear that a particular amount isn't enough to affect the deficit, but that's not true. Small amounts add up quickly. So, just like putting spare change into a jar, one deposit may seem very insignificant, but over time it becomes substantial. On a town scale, a $25,000 expenditure may not seem like much on its own, but several of those small amounts quickly turn into 100,000, 200,000, and beyond. So for me, it's not as simple as a yes or a no. Ideally, the answer should be no, because strong management should prevent the need for council involvement at that level. But given the current financial challenges and the recent override votes, the answer right now must be yes. With accountability and oversight in place, we can work towards a future where the answer can once again be no.
Hmm, that's fair. Good. Thank you for that. The council also approves the annual budget, which gives you a chance to elaborate further on that part, which sets the priorities for how Franklin operates. And faced with the fiscal challenges that we've seen in the past and clearly at this point seem to be happening for the next couple of years, what are the financial priorities you think we need to address? And I apologize in advance. There's also kind of a couple of related questions with this. So if you needed to get rephrased as we do this, feel free. I'll do that too. But kind of the part two is how would you explain what needs to be done to the residents and voters? And then the third and final part is what would you do to help the community understand that separation between the council and the school committee?
Okay. As far as the fiscal challenges, there's a lot that needs to be addressed. Um, put it simply, we must prioritize our needs over our wants. Our first responsibility is public safety, police, fire, and even our senior center, which I consider part of safety, because for many seniors, it is a lifeline. It is a safe place and a vital support system that they need. Our schools are also very essential, and we cannot pit the town and the schools against each other. If the town fails, the schools fail. If the schools fail, the town doesn't survive. They're
Hmm.
not interdependent. And until we acknowledge that conflict, will continue. Given our deficit, financial priorities must begin with hiring freeze and limiting pay increases, no automatic colas, even with union contracts. Any raises should be minimal and tied to fiscal reality. We also need better tracking of how money is spent, supplies, equipment usage, hours worked. I've heard concerning stories. I'm not saying they are true, but these are things that I have been told about employees that are supposed to be certain places and working, but yet they're not there and they're still getting paid. Without systems to track hours and accountability, nothing can be proven. Salary or not, oversight must improve. We must also be smarter about equipment purchases. For example, I think we've actually had a conversation about this.
Hmm.
The $94,000 spent on a lawnmower that is sitting in the DPW because they don't have a trailer in order to pull it, so they can't use it. That's 94,000 that could have been avoided during a deficit. Those are the kind of decisions that matter. I would never eliminate a revenue source. Any program or service that generates income for the town should not be cut, especially in a deficit. That was a mistake that never should have happened. And for me, the priority is to do a deep dive into every budget, set clear needs based priorities, and establish better tracking protocols against departments to ensure fiscal responsibility. Um, then you have what could be done to explain. Are we that one for the school committee? The school committee is essentially the council for the schools.
Hmm.
They hire and oversee the superintendent, review and approve the school budget, negotiate union contracts. Their role is to ensure the schools are run efficiently, effectively, and fairly, and that the superintendent is fulfilling the responsibilities. Just as importantly, the school committee must keep residents informed and transparent about what is happening in the schools and why. Council, by contrast, is responsible for the town. Council hires and oversees town administrator, reviews and approves town budget, and must challenge or question if it is not fiscally responsible. Council ensures the town administrator is doing their job and should hold the town accountable. I'm sorry, should hold the TA accountable when necessary. While the council does not manage schools directly, it does have final approval over the overall budget, which includes the school budget, the 300 account, alongside every department. Like the school committee, the council must maintain transparent communication with residents and what's happening in town government. So, in short, the school committee governs the school, the town council governs the rest of the town. They operate independently, but are both accountable to residents. The only crossover is the town council ultimately votes to approve or deny the school budget, just as it does the other departments.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. And just to clear, I think while you focused on the fiscal responsibilities and the process, and I think you then touched on between school committee and council in terms of the oversight and the updates. Just want to make sure you at least respond to that. How, once you've done the analysis and or the process of figuring out what the priorities are, I'm assuming, and I don't want to assume, I want to make sure you have the opportunity to say what you would do once you, or as part of finding out, to let the people know as part of your transparency.
Um, as I think things should be done in an open meeting. I don't think there should be anything. I don't think that we should be discussing things behind the scenes. I think that if you really want to be transparent with the people, they should know what you're looking into and why. And then as you find out things, that information should be presented to the residents. That is how you get them engaged. They're either going to like what you're finding and be like, yes, this is great, or they're not
Mm-hmm.
going to like what you're finding and they're going to say, okay, this is not what we want. If you're trying to represent the people, you have to know how the people feel. If
Mm-hmm.
they're not given all of the information and they're only given the information right before it's about to be presented for a vote, then how are you really taking the people's considerations? I'm sorry, the people's thought process into consideration
Mm-hmm.
because you're already ready to vote. Why isn't it being done in an open meeting? Maybe we need to put less things on an agenda so we can spend more time on certain areas.
Right. Okay.
I hear so many people that come out and say, they talk about it. There's an open meeting. We get to go up to that microphone. But the bottom line is they've already made the decisions on where they're going to vote before they even walk in that door. Is it true? I don't know. I'm not a sitting council member. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going behind the closed doors. And I won't unless I'm sitting there. But if that is the case, then that's a problem. And why people don't come and speak out? Why bother wasting my time to go voice my opinion when they've already made their decision? And that is a valid, um, can't think of the word, but it's a valid statement. If they really don't feel like they're getting up to that microphone and being heard, then why are they going to?
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, fair point. Yep.
I'm opposite. And my point is, even if you're not going to listen, I'm going to get my point on the record.
And that's part of the process. Absolutely. Yes.
Exactly.
Yep. And then the third question for the council is, do you support the goals and recommendations for the 2025 master plan? And if so, what would you do as a town councilor to help implement that? Or if not, why not?
I have mixed feelings about the 2025 master plan.
And you're not the only one.
It's important for us to remember that any master plan is a simple framework. It's not a guarantee that these things are going to happen. It gives Franklin tools to grow wisely, but it's also up to the elected leaders, the boards, the residents to ensure the growth reflects our values, not just numbers. My commitment with transparency and inclusive representation and protecting Franklin's character is what I feel is needed to help guide the plan with heart.
Hmm.
We must be a voice that says growth must honor our past, it must serve our present, and it must protect our future. Franklin is not just a place, it's a feeling, and a feeling that must never be lost. From what I have seen with the master plan, it feels more of the same of what's happening now, like the apartment buildings that are going up. Um, and much of that is going against what residents actually want. We need to stop creating plans that aim to change our town, but instead focus on preserving and enhancing what is already here. Too often, conversations center on increasing population to make downtown vibrant and reducing cars so people can walk and bike more. But the plan seems to focus almost exclusively on the downtown area, ignoring the rest of Franklin. There was a time when downtown was vibrant. People walked, shopped, gathered regularly. We had fewer residents. The answer is not more people, it's more purpose. Storefronts people want to visit weekly, places for family to spend their time, safe spaces that teens can go and hang out. Making downtown walkable, bike friendly is not a bad idea. But we're forgetting that there are many residents that live on the outskirts of Franklin that have to drive to get there. So we need parking. We need to acknowledge that not all streets are safe to walk on. When I was growing up, I used to walk from my house on Maple Street, and I'm on the Partridge end, all the way up 2.5 miles up Maple, up to the center of town to go hang out with my friends. We had the movie theaters, we had friendlies, we went to the newsstand,
Hmm.
all of this stuff. You can't walk up my street safely now. You take your life into your own hands. I
True.
wouldn't risk it. And as my granddaughter's getting older, I wouldn't let her risk it.
Hmm.
These kids can't even ride their bikes uptown because there's no place for them to ride safely. We have had master plans before. Many of the recommendations were ignored or town did the opposite. There was a master plan where it stated we should increase downtown parking. What did they do? They reduced it when they made them angle. So they didn't even follow the plan or the things that were put in place. We must protect town's identity and listen to residents and ensure that any growth reflects who we are, not who someone else thinks we should be.
Hmm.
And
Fair.
that's my feeling on the master plan.
Yeah, no, it's not unusual. Personally, yeah, I agree with some aspects of that. Some are clearly aspirational and won't happen anytime soon, given some of the other realities. Like, yeah,
Right.
to your point, Maple Street and Prospect, Pleasant, Pleasant a little bit less so because they've at least added some sidewalk in some spots. But yeah, Prospect, Maple, other streets in those areas, those are not walkable. There, you take your life in your hands in terms of some of the biking as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
yep, for sure. Well, thank you for that. And while we have the opportunity, if there's another topic and or something else you want to leave with the voters and residents, this is an opportunity to share.
Um, I guess I can just kind of do some final thoughts. I
Hmm.
think that while we've covered many important topics, I want to leave voters with this. I'm not running to be popular. I'm not running for just to say, hey, guess what? I'm a council person. I am running to be honest. I am running to restore trust, represent, and to represent every resident. I don't care if you are a yes voter, a no voter, a Republican, a Democrat, an unenrolled. I do not care. You are a resident in this town and you deserve to be represented. And you deserve to be represented fairly and protect. I want to protect the character of our town. I've called this town my home my entire life, and I have no intention of moving. Um, I can't imagine not living here, even though sometimes it thinks "Oh, it would be nice to just go to another area and go off grid. But the thought of not actually being here literally breaks my heart.
Mhm.
I believe in transparency, fiscal responsibility, and I respectful leadership. I believe in listening to all voices, not just the loudest or the most familiar. And I believe Franklin's future depends on leaders who are willing to ask hard questions, stand alone if necessary, and always put a community first. The election isn't about politics, it's about people. It's about preserving what makes Franklin special while planning wisely for what's ahead. I'm ready to serve. I'm asking for your vote on November 4th, not just for me, but for the future where every resident can feel seen, heard, and respected.
Thank you for that. No objection there whatsoever. Yes. Thank you. Thank you to the listeners as well. And this will come out. Ideally, all the interviews are intended to get out on that long weekend, Columbus Day, Indigenous People Day, however you phrase it, because the ballots theoretically will start getting into the mail about that time. And then early voting starts October 17th and then finishes certainly at the high school on November 4th. So we certainly remind everybody to be informed, reach out. Jane's info, email, phone number will be available like other candidates are. So if you have any follow-up questions for her or any of the other candidates, I encourage people to follow up. I'm sure you're open to that.
Absolutely.
Good. And I think that kind of covers it. So thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate you taking your time as well as the other candidates. You need to do what I won't do. I feel much more comfortable doing this. I don't necessarily want to set up on the to make those decisions. And I appreciate you and all the others for doing that. That's goodness. We need that because we're all in this together. So
Yes.
thank you again. Thank you, listeners. And a quick reminder, we do this because Franklin matters.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.